Before cooking shows and YouTube tutorials, there was Grandma. She didn't need a recipe. She didn't need gadgets. What she had was instinct, practice, and a kitchen full of wisdom passed down over generations. These were more than tips. They were laws of the kitchen, quiet rituals, little tricks learned through doing, through mistakes, through scarcity, through love. Today, most of those rules have faded, but they're still worth remembering. Because when Grandma said, "That's how it's done," you listened. Let's bring 15 of those forgotten rules back to life and see what they still have to teach us. 1. Never start cooking until you've read the whole recipe. Sounds simple, but it saves so many dinners. Grandmas knew to read everything first, so they wouldn't find out midway they had to marinate something for 6 hours. It was about preparation, patience, and respect for the process. She taught us that knowing what's ahead means fewer surprises and better results. Planning wasn't about perfection. It was about setting yourself up for success. And once you knew the plan, you cooked with confidence. That calm in the kitchen, it came from being ready. Even today, this habit keeps home cooks one step ahead. Avoiding burnt onions or missing ingredients, it's not just smart, it's essential. 2. Taste everything as you go. Don't wait until it's on the plate. Grandma tasted soups, gravies, even cookie dough, raw eggs and all. That's how you build flavor. That's how you learn. She used her tongue like a thermometer, checking seasoning, adjusting acid, sensing balance. Cooking without tasting was like driving blind. A spoonful here and there wasn't just checking, it was guiding the dish to its best version. Her palate was her compass, and she followed it closely, adjusting the course until everything tasted just right. It's not just a habit, it's a way to cook with intuition. It turns every meal into a personal journey. 3. A wooden spoon is all you really need. No fancy gear, just one good wooden spoon. Stir, scrape, serve, mix. It did everything, and it never scratched a pot. Old wooden spoons soaked up years of sauces and love. They weren't just tools. They were silent witnesses to family meals and stories told over simmering pots. If you still have one, you're holding a bit of history in your hand. And if it got worn or stained, even better. It meant it had a story, maybe even more than one. That wooden spoon taught you to feel the food, not just stir it. It was an extension of the cook. 4th, room temperature ingredients make a big difference. Butter, eggs, even milk. If a recipe called for it to be room temp, it wasn't a suggestion. It was about chemistry. Cold ingredients ruin batters and doughs. Grandma knew. Let them sit. Baking wasn't rushed. It was intentional. And room temp meant better texture, smoother batter, and fluffier results. She taught us that sometimes waiting was part of the magic, and she didn't just say it, she showed it every single time she pulled something perfect from the oven. She didn't need a thermometer to tell when something was ready. Her fingertips and experience were all it took. 5. Clean as you go. Not just for tidiness, for sanity. Grandma didn't end meals with a mountain of mess. She washed and wiped while things simmered or baked. A clean kitchen was part of good cooking. You cleaned not just because it was practical, but because it was respectful to the space, to the food, to the process, and it meant you could actually relax and enjoy the meal once it was served. It was a rhythm: chop, stir, rinse, wipe, like a dance that kept the chaos away. And after dinner, just a few dishes, because she'd already done the hard work in between. 6. The best recipes aren't written down. Some of the tastiest meals had no measurements. It was a handful of this and just enough of that. Learning to trust your eyes, hands, and nose. That was the real recipe. She didn't need a scale. Her fingers knew the difference between a pinch and a palmful, and her nose told her when the soup was ready. She cooked with intuition, an art that takes years to learn but lasts forever. And if you asked how much, she'd smile and say, "Until it feels right." That kind of wisdom can't be Googled. It's learned standing beside someone who knows. 7. Butter makes it better. Not just a saying, a truth. Butter meant richness, depth, and comfort. Whether it was a dot on vegetables or a full stick in mashed potatoes, it turned food into a memory. Even when money was tight, a little butter made dinner feel like something special. It was the taste of warmth, of holidays, of home, and nothing smelled more welcoming than butter melting in a hot pan. Butter was the hug at the end of the day, the ingredient that always made you smile. And somehow, a little more always found its way into the pan, and nobody ever complained. 8. A cast iron pan is a family heirloom. It wasn't just a pan, it was seasoned with decades of meals, handed down, re-seasoned, never washed with soap, It made the crispiest potatoes, the fluffiest cornbread, and the juiciest meat. A well-used skillet was as personal as a diary. Its shine came from bacon grease, cornbread crumbs, and love. It aged better than anything in the kitchen. And you never ever messed with Grandma's skillet. She taught us that you don't buy a cast iron pan, you earn it. And if you were lucky, you inherited one with stories built into every scratch. 9. Use what you have. If a recipe called for cream and she only had milk, she made it work. No nutmeg? Use cinnamon. Grandma's rule: don't panic, improvise. Cook with confidence, not perfection. Her meals were flexible, adaptable. That was the magic, turning what was on hand into something worth gathering around. Creativity wasn't optional. It was how you survived, and sometimes it made things even tastier. She didn't need everything to be perfect, just made with heart. You learned to cook with courage, not a checklist. 10th, let the dough rest. Bread, pie crust, even cookies. Rest time wasn't optional. It was what made the texture right. Flavors settled, gluten relaxed. She might not have known the science, but she knew the result. The dough wasn't just resting, it was getting better. And Grandma knew that good food and good people need time to come together. Resting time meant you were giving the food what it needed, and that care always showed. It was her quiet reminder that good things take time. And resting dough wasn't idle, it was active patience, a lesson in slowing down. 11th, bones are flavor. From chicken soup to beef stew, bones stayed in the pot because bones meant marrow and marrow meant richness. If it had a bone, it went in, period. Soup without bones? Not in her house. Bones were gold. They added depth, body, and that slow-cooked soul you can't fake. And when it was done, she'd pick them clean. Waste not, want not. Every pot of soup was a lesson in using everything and wasting nothing. Even today, chefs chase that same richness, but Grandma knew it first. 12th, leftovers deserve respect. No tossing things out. Yesterday's roast became today's hash. Mashed potatoes turned into pancakes. Grandma didn't reheat, she reinvented. Leftovers weren't boring, they were an opportunity to stretch, to surprise, to show you cared enough not to waste a single bite. Leftovers were creativity in motion, comfort reimagined. You didn't throw out flavor, you gave it a second life, and somehow that second life always tasted better than the first. 13. Keep your bacon grease. Stored in a jar by the stove, bacon grease was liquid gold. One spoonful in beans, greens, or gravy added a smoky, savory kick you couldn't fake. It added history to every bite, the flavor of breakfast past, living on in the dinner of today. That jar of grease was a secret ingredient and a symbol of flavor passed on. It was a little jar of memory and magic, and when it was gone, you refilled it, because some treasures don't belong in the trash. 14, low and slow, wins the race. She didn't rush a roast, or a sauce, or a stew, because flavor needed time. A low flame, a heavy pot, and patience. That was the recipe for magic. Cooking wasn't a sprint, it was a dance, and she let the food lead. There's no shortcut for flavor, and Grandma knew that better than anyone. Patience wasn't a burden, it was the path to depth. And the reward? A kitchen filled with the smell of something special. 15, feed people with love. The most important rule. Food wasn't just fuel, it was comfort, celebration, connection. She didn't ask, "Are you hungry?" She just handed you a plate. Every bite came with warmth. Every dish carried a message, "I care." And that's why we remember her food the way we do. Her meals weren't just meals, they were love served warm. In her kitchen, food was a language of love, and that love is what lingers, long after the last bite. Maybe these rules don't live in modern cookbooks, but they live in memory. They live in kitchens where the scent of onions and butter still means you're home. So next time you cook, listen for her voice. Hear the unspoken wisdom in your hands, and pass it on. Subscribe to Old World Lifestyle for more timeless tips and forgotten food traditions, because old rules still work, especially in the kitchen. Grandma didn't need a timer. She had instincts. She didn't need a cookbook. She had memory. And if you're lucky, you still carry some of that with you.